Far across the cold black sea of stars, a small blue and green world spun around its sun. Its name was Tellus Mira. The Vithari people had lived there for 10,000 years. They were a peaceful race, with soft gray skin and large dark eyes. They sang to the ocean. They grew silver crops on floating farms. They had never built a single weapon. But now, their world was dying. 2 moons hung in the sky above Tellus Mira. For thousands of years, those moons had moved in a perfect dance. They pulled the tides gently, and the Vithari's ocean cities rose and fell with the soft pull of the water. But 6 months ago, the dance had broken. The Korak had come. The Korak hegemony was a brutal empire that lived by taking. They had giant ships, sharp claws, and no mercy. They had found the Vithari's moons, rich with rare metals, and so they had begun to dig. Their huge mining ships tore into the moons day and night. Pieces of rock and dust fell into space. The moons grew lighter. The dance grew uneven. The Vithari scientists ran their numbers again and again, hoping for a different answer. But the answer was always the same. In 10 months, the moons would crash together. The pieces would fall on Tellus Mira like burning rain. The oceans would boil. Everyone would die. So the Vithari did the only thing they could do. They sent a message to the stars. The signal went out across the great galactic relay network, the web of beacons that carried messages between the older races. It was a simple message, sent in many tongues. It said, "Please, help us. We will die without you." The message reached the concordat of elder races. 7 great civilizations gathered in their floating hall above the central world of the galaxy. They had ruled the stars for many ages. They had ships that could swallow planets. They had weapons no one had ever seen used. If anyone could save the Vithari, it was them. The Vithari sent their best speaker to plead for their lives. Her name was Yenutas, and she was very old. Her gray skin had turned almost white with age. She stood in the great hall before the 7 thrones, and she bowed her head. "My people are dying," she said softly. "We have no army. We have no ships of war. We ask only for help. Any help. Please." The Iluvani spoke first. They were tall beings made of soft light, and their voices were like music. "Dear Yenutas," they said, "we feel your pain, but we have rules. We do not get involved in the troubles of younger races. It is our oldest law." The Threshi collective spoke next. They were many minds that shared one body. "The Korak are too strong," they said together. "To fight them would bring war to all our worlds. We cannot risk so many for so few." The Moran Synod was last. They were robed priests with 3 eyes. "We will pray for your people," they said. "We will build a great memory of your race. Your songs will be remembered. Your art will be saved. You will not be forgotten." Yenutas felt something cold settle in her chest. They were already speaking of her people as if they were dead. She tried to argue. She tried to plead. But the elder races had made up their minds. She walked back to her ship with empty hands. As the Vithari ship left the central world, the message kept playing. It went out on every channel, on every wave, into every corner of the galaxy. The Vithari sent it again and again, hoping that someone, somewhere, might hear. The message traveled. It passed through busy space lanes, where great trading ships ignored it. It crossed empty deserts of space, where no ear could hear. It moved past the borders of the elder races, and went farther, into the wild edges of the galaxy. There, on the edge of nothing, sat an old buoy. It was a small machine, half forgotten, parked at the edge of a small yellow star system. The elder races had placed it there long ago to watch a young race they had marked as too dangerous, too loud, too strange. The buoy was supposed to be turned off, but someone had forgotten. The buoy caught the message. And then, because no one had told it not to, the buoy passed the message on. The message reached the 3rd planet of that small yellow star. It reached Earth. 3 weeks passed. On Tellus Mira, the moons cracked further. The tides grew wild. Whole cities had to be moved to higher ground. The sky at night now showed long dust trails where the Korak ships dug deeper and deeper. Yenutas sat on her balcony, watching the dying sky. Her grandchildren played below her, not yet old enough to understand what was coming. She had told no one, not even her own family, that the elder races had said no. She did not have the heart. Then her assistant came running. The young Vithari was out of breath, and his eyes were wide. "Speaker," he said, "a ship has come." Yenutas blinked. "A ship? From where?" "We do not know. The shape is strange. The metal is mixed. The engines are old. They are asking permission to land." Hope, that dangerous bird, fluttered in her old chest. She tried to push it down. Surely it was only a traitor, lost or curious. But she rose anyway, and she went to the landing field. The ship that came down from the sky was the ugliest thing Yenutas had ever seen. It was patched together from many different parts. Its left side was a different color from its right side. One engine was much bigger than the other. It looked as if it should not fly at all, but it did fly, and it landed gently. A door opened, a ramp came down, and out walked a creature Yenutas had never seen before. It stood on two legs. It had short hair on top of its head and pale brown skin. Its eyes were small and sharp. It wore a simple dark uniform with patches on the shoulders. Behind it came more of its kind, perhaps 10 in all. They looked tired and rough, but they walked tall. The leader, a female by the look of her, walked up to Yenutas. She placed one hand on her chest and bowed her head, an old gesture of respect that the Vithari knew well. "My name is Mara Vasquez," she said, in clear galactic standard. "I am the captain of the ship Perseverance. I come from a world called Earth." Yenutas had never heard of Earth. "Why have you come?" she asked. Mara Vasquez looked her in the eye. "Because you asked?" she said simply. And no one else came. Far above them, hidden in the dark, the watchers from the elder races saw the human ship land. They began to laugh. They sent messages to one another, full of jokes. They sent one ship, they said. One small, ugly ship, to fight the Korek. The little humans have no idea what they have done. They were right. The humans had no idea. But the humans were there. Mara Vasquez was 42 years old. She had grown up in a small town in the south of what used to be called Texas. Her grandmother had been a nurse during the last water war. Her grandfather had been a fisherman. Mara had joined the Earth Space Service at 19, and she had spent the next 23 years pushing humanity's small ships farther and farther into the dark. Now she stood on an alien world, looking up at two cracked moons, with the weight of 1 billion lives suddenly resting on her shoulders. She did not flinch. Yenutas led her to the great council chamber of the Vithari. It was a beautiful room, made of pale blue stone, with water flowing in narrow channels across the floor. The other Vithari elders gathered. They were full of questions. "How many ships do you have?" one elder asked. "1," said Mara. "For now." "How many soldiers?" 12. "We are not soldiers. We are a rescue crew. But we know how to fight if we have to. How will 12 people and one ship save us from the Korak?" Mara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I do not know yet. But I know we are going to try. And I know more of us are coming." She did not say what she was thinking. She did not say that her own people back on Earth had argued for 2 days about whether to come at all. She did not say that some governments had refused to send help. She did not say that her ship had been built from spare parts, because no proper warship had been ready in time. She did not say that they had used personal money, donations, and favors to fuel her ship and feed her crew. She did not say any of it, because none of it mattered. They were here now. While Mara spoke with the elders, far away in the great galactic hall, the elder races were not laughing anymore. They were nervous. The Iluvani ambassador called Mara on a private channel. The tall light being's face appeared on Mara's wrist screen. "Captain Vasquez," the Iluvani said, in its musical voice. "I beg you, leave this place. The Korek will not allow this. They will tear your ship apart. They will kill you and your crew. Your deaths will mean nothing." Mara looked into the soft, glowing face. "Maybe not," she said. "But our absence would mean less." She closed the channel. Dr. Idris Cohn, the chief engineer of the Perseverance, had been studying the moons since the moment they arrived. He was a thin man with a quiet voice, and he had 3 different doctorates. He came to Mara's small office on the ship that night and laid out his charts. "The damage is bad," he said, "but it can be reversed. The moons are still mostly whole. If we can stop the mining, the moons will settle. Time will heal the orbits. The Vithari will live." "And to stop the mining?" Mara asked. Idris pointed to a red shape on the chart. 17 Korak dreadnoughts, heavy guns, shields we cannot break with what we have. Their crews number in the thousands. "And we have 1 ship." Idris smiled, just a small smile. "For now." 3 days later, the second human ship arrived. It was a fat, round ship that looked like a swollen bug. It belonged to a private rescue company called Helios Aid. They had heard the call when Mara forwarded it back to Earth. They had brought medical supplies, water purifiers, and 3 doctors. The captain was a woman named Tani Okafor, who had been pulling people out of disasters for 20 years. She did not ask Mara what the plan was. She just asked where to put the supplies. On the 5th day, 2 more ships came. On the 7th day, 6 ships came at once. On the 10th day, Yenutaz walked out to the landing field and stopped, because she could not count them all. There were ships from Earth's biggest space companies. There were ships from religious groups, sent by a humanitarian order whose members believed all life was sacred. There was an old admiral's personal yacht, which had been refitted with guns paid for from his own savings. There was a university ship full of scientists who had argued their way onto the mission. There were small civilian ships, piloted by people who had simply heard about the Vithari online and decided to come. Yenutas turned to Mara, who stood beside her. The old Vethari's eyes were wet. "Who sent all of them?" she whispered. Mara watched as another ship dropped out of the sky. "Nobody," she said. "They sent themselves." Yenutas tried to understand. "But who is in charge? Who commands this fleet?" Mara thought about it. "I guess I am, sort of, because I came first. But really, no one is in charge. We will figure it out together." "This is madness," Yenutas said, but she was smiling now. Beautiful madness. That night, the human captains met aboard the Perseverance. They were a strange group. There were soldiers and scientists, priests and pilots, business owners and grandmothers. Some had never met before. Some did not even speak the same language without their translators. Mara stood up. "Friends," she said, "we have a problem. 17 Korak dreadnoughts. We cannot fight them straight on. We need to be smarter." Dr. Idris Kone stepped forward. "I have been thinking," he said. "The moons are damaged. The gravity is unstable. I think we can use that. The Korak cannot. Their flight systems depend on smooth gravity. Ours can be set by hand." A retired submarine captain named Henrik Olsen spoke up. "In deep water, we used to play games with sound and shadow. 3 dimensions. Up, down, sideways. The Korak fly in flat lines. We can dance around them." A young woman from a tech company added, "My team can write a code that randomizes our flight paths. The Korak's targeting AI will not be able to predict us, because we will not even know what we are doing until we do it." They talked all night. They argued. They drew on screens. They drew on napkins. They drew on the floor. By morning, they had a plan. It was a strange plan. It was full of holes. It depended on 100 small things going right. It was the kind of plan that no proper military commander would ever approve. Mara loved it. 3 days later, the Korak finally noticed. A fleet of 3 dreadnoughts broke off from the mining operation and turned toward Tellus Mira. The Korak commander broadcast a message to the human fleet. His voice was deep and full of teeth. "Primitive creatures," he said. "You will lower your shields. You will surrender your ships. You will be taken as slaves, and your race will be marked for harvest. This is the only mercy we offer. Refuse, and you die today." Mara opened a channel back to him. She did not raise her voice. She did not make threats. She just said, "No." And then she closed the channel, and she gave the order to fight. The first Korak dreadnought died in a way no Korak ship had ever died before. It came in fast and proud, expecting the human ships to scatter or beg. Instead, the human ships did something strange. They split into 3 groups. Two groups flew up. One group flew down. They moved in different speeds and different angles, and the dreadnought's targeting computer could not find a clean lock on any of them. Dr. Idris Cohn, working from a small science ship, fired 3 small probes into the cracked surface of the upper moon. The probes were not weapons. They were gravity sensors, repurposed. When they hit the moon, they created a small ripple in the unstable gravity field. The ripple grew. It traveled outward in waves. The Korak dreadnought, used to clean smooth space, flew right into the wave. Its engine stuttered. Its shields flickered for just a half-second. That half-second was enough. Henrik Olsen, the old submarine captain, had been waiting for it. His ship had moved silently into the shadow of the moon, just like a submarine hiding under a layer of cold water. The moment the shields flickered, his ship's old mining lasers cut deep into the dreadnought's side. The dreadnought split open. Its crew never knew what had hit them. The second dreadnought tried to learn from the first. It moved more carefully. It used its sensors more widely. It expected the same trick. The humans did not give it the same trick. They gave it a new one. A small civilian ship, piloted by a man who had been an aerial stunt performer back on Earth, flew straight at the dreadnought. He should have been dead in seconds. He used the dreadnought's own gravity well to slingshot around it, and as he passed, he dropped a string of small, simple bombs along the dreadnought's underside. They were not military bombs. They were mining charges, the kind used to crack open rocks. They cracked open the dreadnought instead. The third dreadnought was different. Its captain was older and smarter. He saw what was happening, and he turned to flee. He needed to warn the rest of the Korak fleet. He needed to tell them that these humans were not what they seemed. He never got the chance. The third dreadnought met a small, plain ship marked with the symbol of the Order of St. Francis, a religious humanitarian group from Earth. The ship was unarmed. It carried only food and medicine. Its pilot was a quiet man named Brother Tomas, who had spent 10 years feeding refugees on broken worlds. Brother Tomas had done the math. His ship, fully loaded, traveling at full speed, would do as much damage as a small missile. He had calculated that his death would save at least 800 million Vethari lives. He had decided that was a fair trade. He flew his ship straight into the dreadnought's engine core. There was no warning. There was no last speech. Just a quiet prayer, and then a great white light. The third dreadnought was gone. So was Brother Tomas. On Tellus Mira, the Vethari watched the battle on their screens. They watched ships smaller than a Korak fighter take down ships the size of cities. They watched humans risk their lives and lose their lives for people they had never met. Yenutas wept openly. So did her grandchildren. So did billions of Vethari across the planet. In the great hall of the elder races, the 7 thrones were silent. The Iluvani were the first to speak. "We did not know," they whispered. "We did not know." The Threshi collective tried to argue. "This is a trick. The humans got lucky. The Korak will return with more ships. The humans will be crushed." "Perhaps," said the Iluvani. "But did you see them? Did you see how they fought? Did you see the small ship that flew into the dreadnought?" "Foolish," said the Threshi. "Brave," said the Iluvani. "There is a difference." Back on Tellus Mira, the human fleet was celebrating, but only quietly. They had lost 3 ships in the battle. Brother Tomas was not the only one who had not come home. They held a small ceremony for the dead, on the deck of Mara's ship, with all the captains gathered. Yenutas asked if she could speak. The humans made room for her. "My people have a song," she said in her soft voice. "It is sung when a friend has gone into the deep water. May I sing it for your dead?" Mara nodded, and Yenutas sang. Her voice was high and clear. The humans did not understand the words, but they understood the meaning. Many of them cried. The old admiral, a man who had not cried since his wife died 10 years ago, cried. When the song ended, Mara stepped forward. "We will take care of their families," she said quietly. "Earth will. We do not leave our dead behind, and we do not leave their loved ones alone." A young Vethari child, the granddaughter of Yenutas, came up to Mara. The child was no taller than Mara's hip. She looked up, with her huge dark eyes. "Are you a warrior?" the child asked. Mara knelt down so they could be eye to eye. I am many things, she said. I am a daughter. I am a captain. I am a friend. Right now, I am whatever you need me to be. Is that all right? The child thought about it very seriously. Then she nodded. Yes, she said. That is all right. She wrapped her small gray arms around Mara's neck. Far away, on the Korak homeworld, a great rage was building. The Korak warlord, who had ruled his people with an iron claw for 40 years, sat on his black throne and listened to the report. 3 dreadnoughts lost. To primitives. To creatures the galactic records had not even bothered to map properly. He stood up slowly. He looked out across his great hall, at his generals and his nobles. They waited for his command, the way they had waited 1,000 times before. Bring me my fleet, he said. All of it. Every ship. Every soldier. Lord, his second-in-command said carefully, these are humans. A small race. A new race. Surely, a smaller force. All of it, the warlord said again, and his voice was soft now, which was always the most dangerous thing. And send word to all the worlds of the hegemony. We are at war. Total war. Until every human is dead, or the Korak race itself is gone. There can be no other ending. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in 2,000 years, the Korak hegemony had declared full war. On a planet they could not find on most maps, 8 billion humans were about to find out. The news reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. The message came through every channel at once. Every screen lit up. Every radio crackled. People in shops, in schools, in fields, in kitchens, all stopped to listen. The Korak hegemony, an empire most humans had only just heard of, had declared total war on humanity. The elder races, watching from their great hall, expected one of 3 things. They expected panic. They expected fighting between Earth's many countries. Or they expected surrender. They got none of those things. Instead, the humans did something the elder races had never seen any species do. They agreed. Within a single day, the leaders of every major country on Earth held an emergency meeting. They had spent the last 100 years arguing over almost everything. Borders, money, water, religion, history. They argued about which side of the road to drive on. They argued about how to spell words. They argued so much and so often that the elder races had marked humanity as too divided to ever unite. But on that day, they did not argue. They looked at each other across the long table and saw the same thing in every face. 8 billion lives. A whole species threatened. Strangers far away who had asked for help, and humans who had answered. The Korak had made it personal. Every nation pledged its ships. Every nation pledged its people. Every nation pledged its money. Old enemies shook hands across the table. Young leaders, who had been raised to hate each other, found themselves working together for the first time in their lives. Within a week, Earth had a war fleet. It was, perhaps, the strangest war fleet ever assembled. There were proper warships, of course. But there were also cargo haulers, fitted with new guns. There were old space stations cut loose from their moorings and pushed forward like floating fortresses. There were thousands of small fast ships, built in factories that had only the week before been making washing machines and toys. And there were the people. Oh, the people. Volunteers came from every corner of the planet. Some were soldiers. Many were not. There were truck drivers and surgeons and teachers and chefs. There were teenagers and grandparents. They did not all want to fight, but they all wanted to help. And humanity had a long, long history of finding work for anyone willing to do it. Within a month, Earth's fleet had reached Tellus Mira. The Korak met them in space. What happened next was studied for 1,000 years afterward by every military school in the galaxy. The Korak had numbers. They had bigger ships. They had longer experience of war. By every measure that mattered to the elder races, the Korak should have won easily. They did not win. They did not even come close. Because the Korak did not understand what they were fighting. The Korak fought wars by old, fixed rules. Their ships flew in straight lines. Their tactics were drawn from a great book of war that had not been changed in 500 years. Their AI predicted enemy moves based on patterns from past battles. The humans had no patterns. Human ships moved in shapes that made no sense. They would charge forward, then suddenly stop, then go sideways, then spin in a way that no proper warship should ever spin. The Korak's prediction AI ran calculation after calculation, and every calculation came back wrong, because the humans themselves did not know what they were going to do until they did it. Worse, the humans changed their ships in the middle of battle. A hatch would open. A welder would crawl out, even as the ship was under fire. 5 minutes later, the ship would have a new gun, or a new shield, or a new engine that should not have worked. Captured human soldiers were the worst of all. The Korak had built strong prisons, and they had centuries of experience holding alien prisoners. The humans broke out within days. Some of them broke out only to break into other prisons, just to free Vithari hostages who had been taken in the early raids. One human prisoner, a thin scientist named Dr. Anya Patel, escaped 3 different prison ships before the Korak gave up and just put her on a small lifeboat back toward the Earth fleet, with a polite note asking her not to come back. The Iluvani ambassador, watching from far away, asked the Moron Synod a question. What kind of race fights wars by making it up as they go? The Moron priest looked at the screen for a long time before he answered. The kind we should have made friends with, he said quietly. Long ago, back on Tellus Mira, something else was happening. The Vithari were changing. They had been a peaceful people for 10,000 years. They had no warriors. They had no soldiers. But they had watched the humans come for them. And they had watched the humans bleed for them. And something inside them began to wake up. Yenutas, the old speaker, called her people together. She did not ask them to take up weapons. She knew her people could not fight the Korak with strength. But she asked them to fight in the way the humans had taught them. With their minds, with their hearts, with everything they had. And so the Vithari fought, not with guns, but with knowledge. They knew their oceans, they knew their moons, they knew how the gravity moved in the deep places. They shared all of this with the humans, and together they planned attacks that no Korak commander could ever predict, because no Korak commander had ever lived in those oceans. Vithari technicians slipped onto Korak ships disguised as service workers. They cut wires, they jammed signals, they left small gifts that exploded later. Vithari farmers turned their food ships into floating bases for the human fighters, hidden among the harvest fleets, where the Korak would never think to look. Together, the humans and the Vithari pushed the Korak back. Slowly at first, then faster. The mining stopped. The moons began to settle. The dance, that ancient dance of 2 moons around a blue world, began, very slowly, to find its rhythm again. But the Korak warlord was not finished. On the 84th day of the war, the human fleet pushed deep into Korak space. They were trying to break the warlord's command ships, to end the war fast and save more lives. Mara Vasquez led the charge. Her old patched-together Perseverance now repaired and upgraded, but still ugly, still strange. Still the same ship that had landed on Tellus Mira on that first day. The Korak had set a trap. 6 dreadnoughts hidden in the dust of a dead moon came up at once. They surrounded Mara's ship. Her engines were hit. Her shields fell. Her crew fought back, but the trap was too good. Mara gave the order for her crew to abandon ship. They argued with her. They wanted to stay. She told them, "If you stay, we all die. If you go, you live to help others. That is not a choice. Go." They went. Mara stayed. She tried to start the engines one last time. They would not start. The Korak boarded her ship. They took her alive. And the Korak warlord, who had been waiting for this moment for many long weeks, smiled with all of his sharp teeth. He had her now. The face of the human fleet. The first one who had come. The one who had said, "Because you asked." He would put her in chains. He would put her on every screen in the galaxy. And he would kill her where everyone could see, and he would teach the humans, at last, what it meant to defy the Korak. Or so he believed. The broadcast went out across the whole galaxy. Every screen on every world lit up at once. The Korak had taken over every channel, every signal, every wave. They wanted everyone to see. On Earth, 8 billion humans stopped what they were doing. On Tellus Mira, The Vithari gathered around their screens, holding their loved ones. In the great hall of the elder races, the seven thrones turned toward the broadcast. Even on far worlds, where the war had been only a distant rumor, beings of all shapes and sizes paused to watch. The picture showed a great black hall. The Korak warlord stood at the center, huge and armored, his red eyes burning. At his feet, in chains, was Captain Mara Vasquez. She was bruised. Her uniform was torn. There was dried blood on her face. But she was sitting up straight, and she was looking ahead, not down. The warlord raised his great clawed hand for silence. "Hear me, all the worlds," he said in his deep voice. "I am Vorak, warlord of the Korak hegemony. Before me kneels the leader of the human fleet that dared to challenge us. She came to a world that was not hers. She started a war she could not finish. Now she will pay." He turned to Mara. "Human, speak. Beg for your life. Tell your people to surrender. Tell them to give up your world's location. Tell them to pay for what they have done. If you do this, I will let you live. If you do not, you die today, and your race dies after you." Mara looked up. Her eyes met the camera. She knew exactly who was watching. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was not loud, but it was steady. "My name is Mara Vasquez. I am from Earth. I came to Tellus Mira because someone asked for help, and no one else would come. I would do it again. Tomorrow, next year, in 10 years, in 100 years, I would do it again." She turned her head slightly, so she could look more directly into the camera. "You think killing me ends this. You do not understand my people yet. So let me tell you something true. Earth does not have heroes. We do not have great warriors who are special and rare. What we have is neighbors. We have neighbors, and we have a simple rule. We do not leave neighbors behind." She let out a small breath. "You can kill me. You can kill many more of us. But for every one you kill, 10 more will come. And then 100. And then 1,000. We are 8 billion strong, and we have decided. You hurt one of us. You hurt all of us. You hurt our friends. You hurt all of us. There is no number of dead that will make us stop. There is no threat that will make us turn away. We are coming. All of us. Until you stop." She paused. "That is who we are. I'm sorry no one told you sooner." The warlord roared in fury. He raised his great clawed hand to strike her down. He never finished the swing. Outside the great black hall, in the dark of space, every alarm in the Korak homeworld began to scream at once. The human fleet had arrived. But it was not just the human fleet. Beside the human ships flew Iluvani light cruisers, sent by ambassadors who had quit their old positions in disgust. Beside them flew Threshi vessels, piloted by minds who had broken away from their collective. Beside them flew Moron pilgrim ships, painted in bright colors, full of priests who had decided that prayers alone were not enough. And rising up from below were ships flown by the Korak's own subject races. Slaves from 100 conquered worlds. People who had lived under the warlord's claw for generations. People who had watched the broadcast and who had seen, finally, that this monster could be challenged. They had risen up all at once, in every corner of the empire, and now they were coming home to settle the count. The warlord froze, his clawed hand still in the air. Mara looked up at him. Her face was calm. "Your empire is gone," she said softly. "Your own people just heard everything you said. They have decided you do not speak for them anymore. I would surrender, if I were you." The warlord trembled with rage. For a long moment, it looked as though he would strike her down anyway, just for the satisfaction of it. Then his own guards put their hands on his shoulders. Old guards, loyal guards, guards who had served him for many years. They had heard Mara too, and they had decided. The warlord was led away in his own chains. The war ended within the hour. In the days that followed, the galaxy began to put itself back together. The Korak hegemony broke into pieces. Some pieces became free worlds. Some joined other groups. The conquered races went home. The Korak themselves, those who surrendered, were not killed. The humans would not allow it. "They are still people," Mara said when she was asked. "They will face their crimes. But we are not them. On Tellus Mira, the moons began to heal. The dance, slow and steady, returned to its old rhythm. The oceans calmed. The Vethari sang again. The Concordat of elder races sent a great delegation to Earth. They came with gifts and treaties and a formal invitation. They asked humanity to take a seat among the great races of the galaxy. They offered the highest seat. They begged for forgiveness for not coming when the Vethari had called. Mara Vasquez, now humanity's informal voice, met them on the steps of a small building in a small city by the sea. She listened politely. She thanked them for the gifts. And then she gently said, "No, we do not want a seat at your table," she said. "Your table watched a whole people beg for help and called it a sad story instead of a problem to solve. We will keep our own table. Anyone is welcome at it who wants to do the work." The elder races went home, ashamed. Years passed. Earth grew. Earth changed. New ships were built, better than the old ones, but still ugly, still strange, still made of mixed parts. Earth's people kept their old habit, the simple rule, the one Mara had named on that broadcast. They did not leave neighbors behind. And one day, many years later, a new signal came across the galaxy. A small race, far from Earth, was facing extinction. They sent out a call for help. The Concordat met. The elder races offered prayers. But within hours, a familiar sight appeared in that small race's sky. A battered, mismatched, strange-looking ship dropped out of the dark. Behind it came many more, of every shape and size. The lead ship was piloted by a young Vadari woman. Her name was Siratas, and she was the granddaughter of Yenutas. She had grown up on stories of the day the humans came. She had decided, when she was very small, that she would do the same for someone else, one day. She opened a channel to the small dying world. She spoke in clear galactic standard, the same way Mara had spoken to her grandmother long ago. "You asked," she said softly. "We came." Far away, in a small house by the sea on Earth, an old woman with gray hair watched the news come in. Mara Vasquez was 84 years old now. Her hands were spotted with age. Her hair was silver, but her eyes were still sharp. She watched the rescue. She watched the Vethari woman lead the fleet. She watched the small dying race begin to live again. Mara smiled, and she closed her eyes, and she rested. The galaxy had finally learned what Earth had always known. The stars do not send rescuers. People do.